All right, so today we're going to be diving deep into the mind of
Ooh.
one of philosophy's heavy hitters,
Okay.
René Descartes.
I like it.
Now, I know what you're thinking.
Lay it on me.
Descartes.
Yeah.
Isn't that I think, therefore I am territory?
Right.
And sure, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But imagine you're explaining Descartes to a fellow philosopher.
Okay.
Where do you even begin to capture
Yeah.
the essence of such a monumental figure?
It's a challenge, isn't it? Because Descartes' influence extends far beyond
Oh, yeah.
that famous quote.
Oh, really?
We're talking about a thinker who shaped the course of not just philosophy, but also mathematics and science.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to guide our deep dive, we've got excerpts
Okay.
from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy's entry on Descartes' life and works.
I'm familiar.
But we're not just going for a straight biography here.
Okay.
We're after the aha moments, the insights that make Descartes so relevant,
Yeah.
even centuries later,
Yeah.
especially for someone already steeped in philosophical thinking.
And to really appreciate those insights,
Yeah.
we need to understand the context
For sure.
of Descartes' life.
Right.
It's full of surprising twists and turns
Okay.
that directly influenced his philosophical journey.
Okay, let's unpack this.
All right.
We know Descartes was born in 1596, got a solid Jesuit education,
Yeah.
even dabbled in law,
Pretty standard.
pretty standard for a scholar of his time.
Yeah.
But then things take an unexpected turn.
Oh.
He goes into military engineering.
Interesting.
What's the story there?
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
It wasn't just any military stint.
Right.
It's during this time that Descartes meets Isaac Beeckman,
Okay.
a figure who would become incredibly influential.
Gotcha.
Beeckman rekindled Descartes' passion for scientific inquiry
Interesting.
and even inspired his early work
Okay.
on music theory, a treatise called Compendium Musicae.
Music theory.
Yeah,
That's not what usually springs to mind when you think of Descartes.
right.
How does this fit into the bigger picture?
It's crucial, actually. In Compendium Musicae, Descartes attempts to apply mathematical principles
Right.
to understand music.
Okay.
And if you think about it, that foreshadows
Yeah.
his later attempts to find
Interesting.
a kind of mathematical harmony
Oh, wow.
in the universe itself.
Okay.
It's an early glimpse of his drive
Gotcha.
to unify seemingly disparate areas of knowledge.
So we're already seeing this interdisciplinary approach taking shape.
Exactly.
Now let's jump ahead to the 1630s.
Okay.
Descartes is on the verge of publishing
Right.
his groundbreaking work, The World,
Mm-hmm.
a work that could have revolutionized scientific thinking.
It's huge.
But then, bam,
Oh.
Galileo gets condemned by the church
Right.
for his heliocentric views.
Yeah.
Descartes, also the Copernican,
Yep.
gets cold feet and shows the manuscript. Talk about a philosophical cliffhanger.
It's a pivotal moment.
Right.
And a source of much debate among scholars was Descartes' fear truly justified.
Yeah.
He was living in the Netherlands,
Right.
outside the direct reach of the church.
Right.
Some argue that there might have been other factors at play,
Okay.
intellectual anxieties perhaps,
Uh-huh.
or a strategic decision
Yeah.
to avoid controversy
Okay.
and ensure his work would be received with an open mind.
So a calculated move rather than pure fear?
It's possible.
That adds a whole new layer to the story.
It certainly does,
Yeah.
and it speaks to the complex relationship
Yeah.
between philosophy, science, and religious authority at the time.
All right, so the world gets put on hold,
Mm-hmm.
but in 1637, Descartes publishes a work that would become even more famous,
Okay.
Discourse on the Method.
Right.
It's known for outlining his philosophical method,
Yeah.
but it's also got these three fascinating essays attached to it.
Okay.
Optics, meteorology, and geometry.
And it's in geometry that we see Descartes, the mathematician,
Okay.
truly shine.
Okay.
He creates a groundbreaking connection
Right.
between geometry and algebra, paving the way for the development of analytic geometry.
Wow.
This was a radical shift in mathematical thinking, and it would have profound implications for physics and calculus down the line.
Hold on, I need a minute to process this.
Yeah.
We're talking about the foundation for the math
Right.
that would shape our understanding of
Yeah.
the physical world.
Exactly.
And he just casually includes it as an appendix
Right.
to his philosophical treatise.
It speaks to Descartes' ambition,
Wow.
his desire to create a unified system of knowledge
Okay.
that encompassed everything from the workings of the human mind
Right.
to the laws governing the universe.
It's mind-boggling to consider the breadth of his thinking
Right.
And we're not even to the meditations yet.
Oh, yeah.
Meditations on first philosophy.
Yeah.
That's where things get really meta.
Right.
The meditations are a cornerstone of Western philosophy.
Yeah.
But here's something that might surprise you.
Okay.
Some scholars believe
Right.
that Descartes intended this work
Okay.
as a university textbook.
Wait, a textbook?
Yeah.
The Meditations,
Right now?
with all its mind-bending arguments about doubt God
Right.
and the nature of reality.
It's true.
How could that possibly be a textbook?
It goes back to Descartes' ambition
Okay.
to replace the dominant Aristotelian physics
All right.
with his own system.
Okay.
He saw the meditations as a way to guide students
Right.
through this new way of thinking
Okay.
to lay the groundwork for a radically different understanding
Okay.
of the world.
So he wasn't just trying to blow our minds with radical skepticism.
Right.
He was also trying to build a new foundation for knowledge.
Precisely.
Okay.
And it's crucial to understand
Yeah.
that Descartes uses different presentation styles
Okay.
within the meditations.
Yeah.
The analytic.
And the synthetic for a philosopher,
Yeah.
diving into the second replies
Fair.
in particular, can be incredibly illuminating.
Okay.
That's where you really get to grips with the nuances of his metaphysics.
Okay, I'm taking notes here.
Good.
Second replies check.
All right.
So we've got Descartes the philosopher,
Uh-huh.
the mathematician,
Yeah.
the scientist,
Mm-hmm.
and now the professor.
Right.
What else did this guy have up his sleeve?
Well, you can't talk about Descartes without mentioning his magnum opus,
Okay.
The Principles of Philosophy, published in 1644. This was his attempt to present a complete and systematic account
Okay.
of his philosophy
Right.
from metaphysics to physics.
Ah, yes, the principles.
Yeah.
Isn't that where some of his ideas about physics,
Yeah.
shall we say, didn't quite stand the test of time?
You're right.
Yeah.
Some of his physics, particularly his theory of vortices,
Right.
to explain planetary motion,
Uh-huh.
turned out to be incorrect.
Yeah.
But The Principles is still an incredibly influential work.
Right.
It inspired thinkers like Boyle,
Okay.
Haley,
Mm-hmm.
and even Newton,
Why?
who grappled with Descartes' ideas
Yeah.
and ultimately developed their own groundbreaking theories.
So even his missteps pushed scientific thinking forward.
Yeah.
But there's more to the principles than just physics.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
What other philosophical gems can we find in there?
Oh, plenty.
Okay.
The Principles delves into some seriously controversial
All right.
and thought-provoking ideas,
Okay.
like the impossibility of a vacuum and the infinite divisibility of matter.
Okay.
These concepts were hotly debated
Right.
in Descartes' time,
Okay.
and they continue to spark discussion among
Okay.
philosophers today.
Okay, hold on a second.
Right.
Infinite divisibility.
Yes.
So you're telling me that according to Descartes, you could keep dividing something in half forever?
Yep.
And never reach a point where you couldn't divide it further?
That's the essence of it.
Wow.
Descartes believed that matter was infinitely divisible,
Okay.
with no ultimate indivisible building blocks.
Right.
Of course, this raises some pretty mind-bending questions about the nature of reality.
Right.
If matter is infinitely divisible,
Mm.
what does that say about the fundamental nature of
It's
substance?
like a philosophical rabbit hole.
It is.
You start with a seemingly simple idea
Right?
and end up questioning the very fabric of existence.
Exactly.
I love it.
That's Descartes for you. Always pushing the boundaries,
Right.
challenging our assumptions, and forcing us to confront
Yeah.
the deepest mysteries of the universe.
Now, I can't let you go without talking about Descartes' personal life.
Okay.
I mean, the guy corresponded with princesses,
Yeah.
wrote about the passions of the soul,
Uh-huh.
and even ended up as a philosopher in residence
Right?
to Queen Christina of Sweden.
That's right.
That's not your typical philosopher's tale.
You're right. There's much more to Descartes than just equations and philosophical treatises.
Right.
His life was full of these fascinating connections
Yeah.
and unexpected turns.
All right, tell me more about these princesses and passions.
Well, his correspondence with Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia is particularly significant.
Okay.
She wasn't just a casual admirer of his work.
Right.
She was a sharp intellectual
Yeah.
who challenged some of his most fundamental ideas,
Okay.
especially his concept of mind-body dualism.
For our listeners who might not be as familiar with Descartes,
Sure.
can you break down what mind-body dualism is all about?
Of course.
Nick.
It's the idea that the mind and body are fundamentally distinct substances.
Okay.
Descartes argued that the mind, with its capacity for thought and consciousness, was immaterial,
Right.
while the body was a material extended thing.
So two completely different realms of being. But how do they interact?
Right.
That's always been a bit of a head-scratcher for me.
That's exactly the point that Princess Elizabeth raised.
Okay.
She posed some insightful and, frankly, very difficult questions
Okay.
about how an immaterial mind could possibly interact with a material body
Yeah.
if they're truly separate substances.
Right.
How can they influence each other?
Yeah.
How can a thought lead to a physical action? Or how can a bodily sensation give rise to a mental experience?
It's a question that continues to puzzle philosophers to this day.
It does.
And it highlights a real tension
Yeah.
in Descartes' work.
Right.
A tension between his mechanistic view of the physical world and his belief in the power and autonomy of the human mind.
Absolutely.
Right.
And Princess Elizabeth, with her incisive critiques,
Yeah.
forced Descartes to confront these difficult questions head on.
Wow.
It's a testament to his intellectual honesty
Okay.
that he engaged with her challenges seriously, even when they exposed potential weaknesses in his own system.
So we've got a princess pushing Descartes to refine his thinking.
Right.
What about this Swedish queen?
Okay.
Was it really all philosophy and candlelight in the royal court?
Well, Queen Christina was known for her intellectual curiosity
Okay.
and her patronage of the arts and sciences.
Uh-huh.
She was fascinated by Descartes' work
Right.
and invited him to become her philosopher in residence.
It sounds like a dream job.
Right.
To be surrounded by brilliant minds,
Yeah.
engaged in his philosophical discussions,
Huh.
and supported by a royal patron?
Right.
What more could a philosopher ask for?
It wasn't quite the idyllic scenario you might imagine.
Oh.
Queen Christina had some rather demanding habits.
Such as?
She insisted on philosophy lessons at 5 in the morning.
Oh, what?
3 times a week.
5 a.m. philosophy sessions.
No.
Ouch. That would even make Descartes doubt his own existence.
Descartes wasn't thrilled about it either. The early mornings, combined with the harsh Swedish winters,
Right.
took a toll on his health.
So maybe not the philosophical paradise he envisioned.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
But even in Sweden, surrounded by these less-than-ideal conditions,
Right.
Descartes continued to work.
Okay.
He published The Passions of the Soul in 1650,
Okay.
a book that explored the fascinating interplay
Okay.
between the mind and emotions.
That's interesting. I always think of Descartes as this champion of reason and logic,
Right.
but he clearly recognized the importance
Yeah,
of emotions in human experience.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The Passions of the Soul is often overlooked,
Okay.
but it's a crucial part of understanding Descartes' full philosophical project.
Okay.
He wasn't just interested in the workings of the rational mind.
Right.
He wanted to create a complete account of human nature, one that included the passions,
Right.
the emotions, and their influence on our thoughts and actions.
It seems like Descartes was constantly pushing the boundaries
Yeah.
of his own thinking,
Right.
exploring new territories, and seeking a more complete understanding of the
Absolutely.
world and ourselves.
Exactly, and that's what makes him such a compelling figure, even centuries later.
Right.
He wasn't content to stay within the confines of traditional philosophy.
Right.
He ventured into mathematics, physics anatomy,
Wow.
and even explored the realm of human emotions.
He really embodies that spirit of intellectual curiosity
He does.
and the pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
That lies at the heart of the philosophical endeavor.
For sure.
But before we get too carried away with Descartes' triumphs,
Yeah.
wasn't there a rather tragic end to his Swedish adventure?
You're right. Sadly, in early 1650,
Yeah.
Descartes contracted a respiratory infection, likely pneumonia.
Oh, no.
Despite showing initial signs of recovery,
Okay.
his condition worsened and he died on February 11th
Wow.
at the relatively young age of 53.
Gone too soon.
Yeah.
But what a legacy he left behind.
Christian.
It's amazing to think that even today, philosophers are still grappling
I know, it's incredible.
with the questions he raised and the ideas he set in motion.
That's the mark of a truly great thinker, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their work continues to resonate, to provoke,
Right.
and to inspire new generations of thinkers.
Okay, I've got to ask from your perspective as a philosopher,
Yeah.
what's the one thing that you think someone should take away from this deep dive into Descartes?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think for a fellow philosopher, it's about appreciating how Descartes
Okay.
even when he might have gotten the things wrong,
Yeah.
fundamentally shifted the way we approach philosophical problems.
So it's not just about the content of his ideas,
Right.
but the method, the way he framed the questions.
Exactly.
Well,
Take his idea that a vacuum is impossible.
right.
This might seem like a scientific quirk now,
Okay.
but it was deeply tied to his understanding of substance and extension.
Okay.
For Descartes, if something exists,
Yeah.
it has to be somewhere, occupy space.
Okay.
This led him to reject the possibility of a true void.
And yet this idea sparked a huge debate, didn't it?
It did.
I remember reading about Newton's arguments
Yes.
against a completely full universe.
Yes. Newton pointed out that a universe without any empty space
Right.
would create serious problems for explaining motion.
Okay.
If everything is crammed together, how can anything move?
Right.
This disagreement between Cartesian and Newtonian physics became a driving force in the development of our modern understanding
Wow.
of space and motion.
So even when Descartes was, from our modern perspective, wrong,
Right.
those wrong turns opened up new avenues of inquiry.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And we see a similar dynamic with the debate over the infinite divisibility of matter.
Okay.
Descartes held firm to this idea,
Mm-hmm.
but thinkers like Gassendi argued for the existence of indivisible atoms,
Right.
a concept that resonates more with our modern understanding of physics. But what's fascinating is how this debate wasn't just about the size of particles.
Yeah.
It got to the heart of profound metaphysical questions, didn't it?
Right.
If you keep dividing matter forever,
Yeah.
do you eventually reach a point where there's nothing left?
Right.
What is the fundamental stuff of reality?
It's wild.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Descartes' insistence on infinite divisibility
Yeah.
pushed other philosophers to grapple with these fundamental questions
Okay.
about the nature of being and substance.
Mm-hmm.
And those questions are still relevant today, even as our scientific understanding has advanced.
It's like Descartes laid down a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I see the world. Now try to prove me wrong.
I love that.
And in doing so, he spurred centuries of philosophical and scientific progress.
And that's why, for a philosopher,
Yeah.
engaging with Descartes is essential.
Okay.
It's not just about agreeing or disagreeing with him. It's
Yeah.
about understanding how his ideas shaped the landscape of Western thought, how they forced us to think more deeply
Yeah.
about foundational questions.
So what you're saying is, even if we've moved beyond
Yeah,
some of Descartes' specific conclusions,
right.
we're still working within the framework he established.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And perhaps the most enduring legacy of Descartes, the one that's still sparking fierce debate in philosophical circles,
That's okay.
is the mind-body problem.
Mm.
Princess Elizabeth, with her brilliant critique of Cartesian dualism,
Yeah.
highlighted a tension that remains unresolved.
Okay.
How do we account for the apparent interaction
Right.
between the immaterial mind and the material body?
It's a question that's almost impossible to avoid
Right.
if you're thinking about consciousness,
Yeah.
about the relationship between our thoughts and our actions, about the very nature of what it means to be human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Descartes might not have given us the definitive answer,
Okay.
but he gave us the question.
Right.
And in many ways, that's even more valuable. It's a question that continues to drive philosophical inquiry, forcing us to refine our understanding of the mind,
Right.
the body,
Yeah.
and the intricate relationship between them.
So if we had to distill Descartes' impact down to one key takeaway
Yeah.
for a fellow philosopher,
Okay.
what would it be?
I think it would be this. Never underestimate the power of radical doubt.
Okay.
Descartes, with his method of systematic skepticism,
Mm-hmm.
showed us that true knowledge requires a willingness
Okay.
to question everything,
Right.
to strip away our assumptions,
Mhm.
and to rebuild our understanding of the world from the ground up.
Wow.
It's a challenging process, but it's the foundation of philosophical inquiry.
And that's a lesson that's as relevant today as it was in Descartes' time.
Absolutely.
We live in a world of information overload,
Yeah.
of competing narratives and easy answers.
Right.
But Descartes reminds us that true understanding requires critical thinking,
Yes.
rigorous questioning,
Mm-hmm.
and a willingness to embrace uncertainty.
Beautifully put. I
Wow.
couldn't agree more.
Well, there you have it, folks. Descartes, philosopher, mathematician, scientist, and let's not forget,
Yeah,
instigator of some of the most enduring questions in Western thought.
it's true.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Until next time, keep those minds questioning,
Absolutely.
those ideas flowing,
Yes.
and never stop doubting.